I'm a great believer that self-esteem isn't one big lump. I think it depends on the area. I think it's in small pieces. And the reason I think it's like that is because I've treated people, one woman comes to mind that I treated a few years ago now. She had made millions in her own business, but went home in the evening and behaved like a doormat and was punched, pushed around, sexually bullied. And it was horrible what she was subjecting herself to.
And is
But
that where
get
you come
out.
in? It's learned behavior because she's allowing that to go ahead.
It was her, yes.
Yeah.
And one of the things that impressed me some years ago was a guy that he's still around. We're not in contact anymore. But he said, if you build it right, they will come.
Mm.
And so I work on that principle that the victim or survivor hasn't quite built it right yet. So, and that includes their self-esteem.
Is that self-esteem though, Ray, or is that attachment where they're having insecure?
Oh yes, well, now we're going down that rabbit hole. Yes, of course it is. It's all about, yeah, it's attachment too. And what you'll find is that there will be an insecure attachment somewhere, maybe, and that pushes their self-esteem down in particular areas. And I'm always a great believer as well that intimate relationships get under your guard. Because in an intimate relationship, we are at our most vulnerable at certain times, but you mustn't be like that all the time because it eats away. And if you have someone that's a bully, let's just call them that for the time being, they're going to take advantage of that lack of self-esteem. So the balance tilts, doesn't it? And that's what happens. It's funny, I've been poorly the last 18 months or so. I'm better now than I've been for 18 months. And I was at the doctor's last week with just for a checkup. And she said, and it was really, I thought I was in trouble. She was going to give me bad news about something, but it wasn't. She just wanted to catch up on all the different tests she'd had and how they were so easily much better, much improved. I was getting better. And she didn't know what I do. And I've seen this doctor a few times. You get the different one every time these days, don't you? But and when I said to her, I do this, and this is my area of special interest, she was about to forget who she was, the doctor. And she was about to tell me about her relationship. I could see it in her face. And then she physically got hold of herself and went back to being my doctor. So I'm expecting a call from her any day now.
I'm not surprised.
But what's amazing and what I find is there's so many of them. Do you find that they're everywhere?
Yeah. When you start seeing it, when you've studied it, I mean, I've done, since doing media and sociology, I've now studied to be a counsellor with Yvonne, and I've studied psychology at master's level, and now I can't not see them.
That's good. You've come through to that point.
Yeah.
Because they are fascinating. They're very predictable as well.
They are.
When you watch them, and this I work with, the people I work with, I tell them to learn the triggers, but also learn the rhythms. Because that's what happens. You learn the rhythm, and what you end up with is the mentality of a naughty teenager.
Yep.
That's what they are. They want all the trappings of adulthood, but none of the responsibility. It's almost like you want to say, go and clean your room. You've got 7 dirty coffee cups. Yeah. Your clothes are all over the floor. Go and clean your room.
Yeah.
And that's
I've actually had, sorry.
No, go.
Yeah, I've actually had a very similar experience to what Louise is just saying with my soon-to-be ex-husband.
Yeah. Well done.
Thanks. that basically, so we've split up and separated over 2 years ago. And these last 2 years, they've been kind of okay. It was okay to communicate with him. He's not easy to communicate with, but it was civil, let's say, and it was okay. Sometimes we'd argue. And anyway, very recently, I said no to him for the first time, because even over the even during these last 2 years, if he wanted something and I thought, okay, I don't mind, I would support, I would help, you know, and then all of a sudden, we had a deal and he didn't complete his end of the deal. And I thought, and I actually, it was like a wake-up call to me. I was like, hold on a minute. I was just about to do what I was supposed to do anyway. And then I was like, hold on a minute. There is something not right here. Why am I, why do I want to do something for him if he's not done something for me? And there was literally like, I said, okay, I'll do this for you, but please do this for me. Okay, as an exchange, we're not together anymore. I'm not your mother. I didn't say that, but I'm thinking like, I'm not, you know, I'm not his mother to always say, yes, I will do this for you. And it was such a tiny little thing. I was actually in the UK and he wanted me to get him some perfume that like, these sprays that he really loves, and I always used to do that when I was there, but then I asked him to do something for me, he didn't, and I was like, well, okay, well, you didn't, I'm not gonna. And oh my god, what's happened? Like, I've known him for 7 years now, I think, and I have never seen him like that. He acted like you said, like a teenager that just been said no by his mum. Like all of a sudden, mum's always doing everything for me, and all of a sudden she's saying no, so I'm just gonna throw a tantrum. And he started being abusive verbally, first time ever. And I was like, who am I dealing with? Do I know this person? And now I'm seeing all these narcissistic traits in him, and I'm like, wow, crazy. So like very similar situation. It's like, oh, yeah.
They're amazing that the world centers around them, doesn't it? That they believe they're the only ones entitled.
And no responsibility. Funnily, he used to say to me, so at the beginning of the relationship, he was very different. He was very respectful of my emotions, feelings, and caring, and it was, again, slow and subtle. But then it came to this, so he came to this conclusion, basically, that if there is something between us that was hurting me, and I was voicing the way I felt because of the situation that happened between us, or whatever he said, he would tell me that I'm responsible for my emotions and the way I feel. It's nothing to do with him. And I'd be like, okay, of course I'm responsible because it's my reaction. However, I was trying to also voice some situations that might not be okay towards me, right? But anyway, so in such situations, I was responsible for my own feelings, right? But if he was upset because of me, I was also responsible for his emotions and feelings. So it was like, and when I was trying to explain that, I was like, oh, hold on a minute. So I'm responsible for mine, but I'm also responsible for yours. Again, like, wow.
Hold themselves accountable, can't they? That's
like,
the problem. It's quite funny though when you say that.
It is funny. It is funny now when you kind of detach from it, but when you're actually in it, it's not as funny as it can be after some time. But
it's what's the big weapon they use when even before the separation, but after particularly. I found that they use one big weapon, the only weapon they have. I don't know if you found the same thing. For me, what they do is they throw confusion. They throw a bomb of confusion. Your client, patient, whatever you want to call them, reacts. And that's what they feed off. They feed off the reaction. So if you would manage to get your client away from that reaction, they end up arguing with themselves. Now, I've known plenty of people that could have a fight in a locked room all by themselves. But then you must leave them to do that. I have a few.
in what you were saying about the reaction, just to give a different context, I also do risk assessments with the church, and you get a lot of narcissists that are attracted to the church because of standing and status and get
Yes, of course,
but inevitably when one is suspended for having done something or that may suggest they create a risk, you will inevitably find polarization. You will get half of the church on their side, and again that reaction feeding off that is a big problem.
Yes. It's enabling, isn't it? It's flying monkeys, isn't it? It's the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, because it's all about power and control, isn't it? That's
Exactly.
every day. It must be exhausting for them. I heard a beautiful analogy once where the narcissist is like a a bucket with holes in it, and it doesn't matter how much you fill it up with attention or love or support. They just constantly, all the time, needing topping up. And I always wonder what it's like to be a narcissist and constantly having to be in that loop all the time.
Yeah, it's interesting thought. Have you ever had narcissists, either of you, have a narcissist approach you for work with them?
For work? What do you mean in the sense?
Yeah, I mean, Yvonne, have you ever had somebody say to you, "Oh, everybody thinks I'm a narcissist. I'm not. Can you?" Because
I have had clients come and say that, but inevitably I find that they weren't narcissists. Because when does a narcissist ever admit there's something remotely wrong with them?
Oh, it's a good point. Very often it's because of the court. There've been a court case, and the court has said, this is narcissistic way of behavior, and they've gone, "There's nothing wrong with me. I'm going to go to a therapist and prove there's nothing wrong with me." When they were having problems in the marriage, my two daughters used to call him Elvis because he kept leaving and coming back. We had another family somewhere probably, and he kept leaving and coming back, and then so they started to call him Elvis because Elvis has left the building. That was their little joke. But that's exactly what he would do. He would, he would just walk and then decide he was coming back in a few when everything calmed down and nothing mattered. But he actually went for therapy, and I didn't know the person that he went to. I'd heard of them, and it was in Leeds, and I'm sort of 20 miles north of Leeds, and it was in Leeds somewhere, and he only went for 3 sessions, and this therapist said they wouldn't work with him anymore because but he came out saying, "Well, there's nothing wrong with me." She said so. I mean, she didn't, but she said, "There's nothing wrong with me. I'm all right. It's you." And so it validates them to do that, and I won't work with that. One got past me once, and I got into the 3rd session, and I went, "No, we stop here." And he was outraged. But generally speaking, they don't, because there's nothing wrong with them. It's everybody else, isn't it? Because that's that egocentricity there.
Do you think they actually really feel that way?
No, they feel a lot of deep insecurity and shame, false self. Yeah.
There's very little self-reflection there, right? If they don't want to.
I have a theory about that. Oh no, yeah, you're quite right. I think there's almost none in some cases. And this is you walk into this behavioral narcissism that I talk about. And that is, it's a learned behavior in childhood. They suddenly get the notion that all you have to do to win in life is bully people. And now lots of our colleagues will say the same thing. Yes, that's true. But what I've never seen written anywhere else, and that may be my weakness of education rather than anything not written, but what happens is that their cognitive development curtails, in some cases it stops, and that's why you end up with a 14-year-old. So their cognitive ability, this if you talk about it with the CBT terms, that triad of self, world, and future, that Aaron Beck talked about, that triad, that we all develop our place in the world and what our feelings about ourselves, and how we're going to manage ourselves in the world. They don't do that. I'm convinced they don't. So that lack of development means that they create their personality not by self-monitoring at all, where some of us, or most of us, will do that balance between self and world. They only do world. That is why they join committees and they're successful in business, and those are the sorts of things they do, because that's their personality has no depth, and they don't want
to connect authentically. Definitely, that's what I've when I meet them, they have no ability to authentically connect with anyone.
No, you have to connect with them in their way.
But then for the other person, this connection feels real, right? Because you feel like you're connecting authentically on your level, but because they are so smart with learning how you feel, how you react, then it feels real. Then literally for this other person, it feels authentic because they are so smart in learning, you know, your reactions and behaviors and so many more, that it's just, that's what's scary.
Well, they're so good. In football terms, I don't expect you to follow football like I do, but in football terms, we call them a one-trick pony, and they can be brilliant at it, so brilliant at it that the defender will know what they're going to do, but they can't stop them, because there's so many tricks in the way they perform it, and they can be world-class players that are one trick.
I think the most dangerous part is probably the cognitive empathy, isn't it? But they lack the emotional empathy, so they know what upsets you. They know like how
they
you're
watch.
And they use it against you.
Yeah, they do.
Of
they don't.
course,
They use
but
it
they're
against
learning.
you.
They're learning so that they can use it against you, aren't they? I always call it a cupboard. You open the cupboard and it's full of buttons. They see all of your buttons, and they know which ones to press. But they're so good at mimicking what you need, what you're looking for. You think it's the perfect relationship. The victim thinks it's perfect. And I'm always saying to people, if something is too perfect, if it is perfect, it's probably not true. If you think it's too good to be true, then it is. And so it's but they're so good at it, aren't they? They dupe people.
So would you say, Ray, they're always on the lookout for vulnerabilities that they can manipulate?
Well, they don't stop at one. Certainly the men don't. They don't stop at one. The women can be more vicious in terms, but because men are such weak, have such fragile egos, that it's very easy to emasculate a partner, but for a woman that's an intimate relationship. But when it's men, chances are they have got 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, I don't know, whatever their stamina tells them they've got, lined up and probably having sex with. But
I suppose my interest is more outside the context of an intimate relationship. So, for instance, in the workplace, because I'm interested in how they choose their victims. They seem to have an inbuilt radar for vulnerability to begin with, but I'm interested in how they build up those manipulative strategies.
It's an interesting thought, but they're the one-trick pony. And they've learned this in childhood. So in childhood, they'll say, oh, all I got to do is punch this guy or threaten to punch him and he'll do what I want. And that develops as they get older. They realize that they can't, some of them realize that they can't go around punching people all the time. But what they can do is a metaphorical punch. They learn that people's vulnerabilities, that if they keep producing this one trick, this wonderful outgoing lovable person that they are, people are drawn to it because they think it's real. When actually I read a paper not that long ago, a few months back now, that reckons that 40% of the adult population have narcissistic tendency. That's horrifying.
It is. It is when you think that they will want to destroy someone they deem to be more successful, attractive, or intelligent, or emotionally grounded. If you've got attributes that the narcissist wants, and there's that many of them that are out there, that literally threatens their fragile self-image, and that then would unleash the gates of hell on you, and you'll literally have no idea why. And it could be just like Yvonne was saying, like she was just being normal at work, and she ended up attracting horrific things because of it.
Yeah, I've only ever once in this 20 odd years plus that come across one person that left quickly, almost as soon as that happened. And it was a young woman and who lived with a guy that was a chef. So he worked nights. He was, you know, quite a good, apparently quite a good chef. And he was a Rottweiler, I mean, you know, in the kitchens, and he used to come home exhausted late, you know, like early morning sort of thing after the restaurant had closed. And they were arguing one morning over breakfast. She said to me, and I said, and we were arguing, she said, and suddenly I realized I'm flat on my back on the floor. He's punched me. And she said, I got up and I packed a bag and I left. Certain proportion of the work I do, though, is with family stuff. Do you find that there's a lot of that going around, that it's parent to child?
I do work with parents. That's predominantly what my work is, but I haven't dealt with the child disliking the mother or the father. It's been more the adult person who's in their 40s or 50s has realized that they've been brought up in a narcissistic family. One of the parents is narcissistic, or both, and then they're trying to heal from that way into their 40s and 50s. And that saddens them because they spent years very confused.
Yeah, they do, don't they? They think that's their place in life.
Sadness and anger as well. It's dealing with the anger and the constant manipulation as well that's still going on even when these parents are in their 70s or 80s.
Yes, it's sometimes worse. The worst thing I ever came across was actually an old friend of mine. He wrote, it was 2 or 3 years ago now. He contacted me through Facebook, I think, and he said, have you got any books I can read about bringing up somebody that has become my daughter has become narcissistic, and she's bullying me and my wife. The mother was long gone, and I couldn't find much. But it's difficult. How do you bring up a child and then realize that they bully you?
Well, for me, it was understanding the triangulation and realizing I was the scapegoat, my sister was the golden child, and understanding those dynamics. It was like everything fell into place with my childhood.
Yes.
And it's very difficult being the scapegoat because you're the one that sees the bullshit. So you're the one that ends up being a problem because you're going to obviously cause
the weirdest thing of all is, I think the one that ends up with mental issues is the golden child.
Definitely.
How many times I've heard, oh, my sister's on drugs, or she's tried to commit suicide or something like that. And it's because the golden child never learns disappointment, never learns resilience, whereas the scapegoat does.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
And that's I've got a client in New York at the moment. She's a psychiatrist, a lead psychiatrist, and she works in a secure unit. So I can only see her at the weekends because she's locked in this place. And I said, and she's been abused several, you know, like hit and punched. And she says, I am constantly aware of my safety. And I thought, but you keep going back. I would go once. No, I'm not sitting here. Let someone else do this. But she she's completely cut off her sister and parents, completely cut them off. And she feels liberated because of it. And I can't blame her for the way they behaved, was appalling. But she has a younger sister that has had drug issues and is constantly ill and in and out of hospital. But she's the perfect daughter. My client is doctor. They call her the doctor. So I said not so long ago, you don't need to be there for them to trash you. You know, you think about how you mix with this toxic group. And several weeks later, several sessions later, she said, I'm going to cut them off entirely. Cut them off. And she's blocked their numbers, and they know where she lives, but she doesn't get any messages from them.
I think as a scapegoat, you do eventually, that is a course that a lot of people take, I think, as the scapegoat. You cut ties because it's too much. It's so negative on your life otherwise. Do
you think it's easier to cut ties when it's family than it is when it's an intimate relationship?
I think it's easier to cut ties with toxic people. I think if we just see people as objects in the sense of like, they're toxic, they're not good for me, I need to get rid of them, it's a lot easier, regardless if it's your mum, your dad, your sister, or your partner. The problem with being a partner, though, and I've been through this, is that you have financial and children, and there's so many other complex things that you can't just walk away. There's that horrible elastic band connection on a lot of it. So
yeah, I think some families are very easy, very quick to cut off members that don't fit the mold. And you know, there's lots of research on groups, even intimate groups that we call a family. But I make a distinction with clients between family and relations. Your blood doesn't make family, blood makes relations.
Yes, very true.
And I, because my sister passed July, just gone, and my older sister, and she and I had a very difficult relationship for a number of years. Well, most of my life anyway. And she was very narcissistic. And at one time I used to call covert narcissism little old lady narcissism, because that's what she was. It was perfect. But I realized with her, I realized that the style of narcissism is not fixed, because she could change in a heartbeat to be this nasty, malignant, vicious individual. From being little old lady, you know, oh, please do things my way, because that's the covert element. And I realized that all narcissists can just change so quickly within one sentence.
Yeah, depending on your value system to them, or if you've got any value system.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and that's strange, isn't it?
Yeah, when people always say as well, and with family, that love is unconditional with your mother, but I think with the narcissistic family, love is conditional, and that's the problem. That value is there. So, yeah.
I mean, you spend half your life thinking that it's unconditional, and it's not.
Yeah.
One of the biggest thing, I think you come across the same thing. One of the biggest weapons a narcissistic mother has is nothing, is silence. I don't know if you've ever come across people that have said, well, my mother didn't talk to me sometimes for days at a time.
Yeah, it's one of their punishments.
It's one of their
silent treatment. Yeah, I can tell, I don't mind talking about my mother at all, but she decided to ghost me, and then she popped up years later and went, would you like to go for a cup of coffee? I was like, no, I don't want to go to a cup of coffee with you. You're a strange woman. And she said, I'll never talk to you again. And I'll give her a due. She has never spoke to me again. But yeah, I think that's something that they do. It's really strange. I'm a mum, so I could never conduct myself that way with my son. I won't leave him alone. I'm always talking to him. So I find it really odd how I was raised, but that's narcissism.
Absolutely. It is, isn't it? And when you're not the golden child, when you're the scapegoat, you learn about it much quicker.
Yeah, Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And you realize the parents' needs come first, and you learn that, and you end up being really good at reading people. So some of it's power tools for me now, I think, because you can scan for emotional cues to stay safe. And so it's learned skills. It's not all negative.
Did she get between you and your sister, Louise?
Yes, horrible triangulation growing up, and my dad as well, actually. So it was always someone was being played off against each other. But what it meant was there's utter chaos in the house. There's always someone having an argument with someone, which is not nice growing up. It means that you never get a chance to know yourself, because you're constantly concentrating on the external. Am I safe?
Yes.
Is my sister safe? What's going on? So yeah, I would say in my 20s, I probably didn't really know who I was. I didn't have a self-identity at all. It was quite confusing.
But it's
You've
also very common. Sorry, I just wanted to say, following up what Louise was saying, that it's actually very common to lose your self-identity if you become a partner of a narcissistic person, right?
You learn,
and then you have to relearn how to be your actual self.
Yeah.
You just forget who you are
completely,
because you're so manipulated all the time that you just forget who you really truly are. Yes. And I've dealt with this with coaching some clients, literally for them to remember who they are and how they were. They literally say they literally kind of split their lives into prior the relationship and post. So like, and sometimes they say about themselves, I was. When when I'm trying to ask some questions, so tell me something about yourself, what you like within you, about yourself, what you like within yourself, that'd be like, well, I used to be. And it's also like, it's in a way, it's fascinating how you can completely lose yourself, and then you realize you've lost yourself, and you're pretty much forgetting who you used to be. But a lot of these women I deal with, a lot of these women, like even their first words to me are that they want to be themselves again. I want to be like I used to be. I used to be positive. I used to feel happiness. Now I can't find it anymore. So yeah.
Nervous system completely shot to pieces afterwards. So it's really difficult to be that person again, because your nervous system wasn't shot to pieces when you met them. You're probably confident and thriving and really happy, and that's what attracted them.
Yeah.
I always think I would say that you can't go back to where you were, but you can recreate an improvement. I always find, though, that there is a tiny little element of that original person still in there, but you have to find it with them. And that, it doesn't matter what bit of them it is, but even if it's 1%, you can rebuild them better, because it can't be the same, because they've had the experience. But that makes them better, doesn't it? Because will they get forward again? Do you have people come back to you more than once?
What for?
Well, and yet another bad relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, well,
I haven't, not for a while. But
yeah.
But they've become comfortable, haven't they? They've grown up in that narcissistic family, and they become comfortable with the abuse. They don't realize they're stepping into abuse. They don't spot the red flags, and even when they do, it's comfortable. And it's gaslit so much that, like you mentioned,
familiar, isn't it?
Yeah, it's familiar. It's what we want. We all want familiar. We're drawn to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what I've noticed also is that, let's say a lady will come out of one abusive relationship and she'll get into another abusive relationship. However, this partner seems to be totally different than the first one. So, for example, he will the previous one wasn't giving her physical attention, wasn't telling her that she's beautiful, was verbally abusive and saying to her very nasty things, you're ugly, you're worthless, you're this and this. And then this other one, the next one, is giving her all the attention, telling her you're beautiful, you're the best, you're the smartest, and this, but she's still getting into an abusive relationship just with someone who's given her what the other one hasn't been given her. You know what I mean? And it kind of feels like a pattern. And then the third one will give her what the second one wasn't given her. And yeah, and it kind of rolls on. Yeah.
I think that keeps going until there is physical issues. And I found that with a client I had some years back. She was on her third, and this guy he was sexually abusive to her, and they weren't married, but she allowed it to happen. And it was only when she felt that physically uncomfortable that she did something about it and looked for help.
Is that trauma bonding?
Sorry, what was that?
Is that trauma bonding, do you think? Where they don't leave until they're physically...
I think, yes, potentially it can be trauma bonding, but for me, it's more to do with lack of self-esteem. I'm a great believer if this phrase that I live by, if you build it right, they will come. And so many of the clients don't think like that. They think they have to mold themselves to what they're meeting, when it should be the other way around. It should be a meeting of minds.
You talk a lot about esteem and choice. You talked about choice earlier, but I don't think it is a choice if their esteem is so low that they think...
Absolutely, yes, I agree with that too. Yeah.
But also emotional abuse is very hard to spot. If you are raised in an abusive environment, you live in an abusive or in some ways destructive environment at home, the emotional abuse is very hard to spot when you're in it, because you correlate abuse with love, and it's like, it is really hard to spot until you actually leave the environment and start healing. Start opening your eyes, being within yourself without any other relationships, and start properly healing and learning what love is. A lot of people don't know what love is because they've never seen it, they've never experienced it. But also emotional abuse is very hard to spot if you are raised in...
The intermittent affection is the trauma bond, and it hijacks the reward system, so your brain's confuses dopamine with oxytocin circuits. You end up with really confusing situation where you know that they're causing you problems, but at the same time there's a part of you still loves them, hopes to go back to those days when they were love bombing you. It's horrific.
There's also an added element there that's very Freudian. I don't know whether I'm going to lose you all here, but it's very Freudian, in as much as Freud would suggest that ultimately the abused person looks forward to the abuse because the next step is the affection. So they actually,
like, I love you.
They encourage the abuse because they know they're going to get past it, and there's going to be and I call it a spiral of abuse, because it'll be calm for a while, and that's when they will flourish. But when they are being abused, they unconsciously want it to happen because they know it's going to get better afterwards.
They're chemically attached, aren't they? If all this dopamine oxytocin circuits are going off, like is it subconscious behavior after that? Like, you're not, are you yourself? You're not your authentic self. You're kind of driven by all the chemicals going off in the body.
See, domestic abuse cycle that you're talking there, where this starts getting moody and it moves and moves and moves until it reaches crescendo, and then they realize they've pushed it too far. They've lost the line, and then they start the love bombing again. But of course, that's the bit she lives for. She's idealizing now, hoping that it will come back.
But it creates a dependency, doesn't it? It's got to be on par with an addiction cycle.
Yes. I mean, even medieval torture paused now and again just to let everything settle down and soak in and then start again. And this is the modern day version of it, isn't it?